Hello everybody, Ben Woodruff here. On today's episode of Desert Lore, we're going to be visiting the Dinosaur Museum in Blanding, Utah. Now, I'm really picky about my museums, but this is one of my top 3 favorite museums in the world. We're going to see some of the most remarkable paleontological specimens and really look at some of the most amazing feathered dinosaur specimens on the planet. So you're going to love this. We're going to go in, we're going to look at all these things up close.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Museum.
So first we have some specimens from pre-dinosaur. We have some Dimetrodon material here. This is basically a Permian creature. A lot of people think they're a dinosaur, but they're actually more closely related to mammals. And these are members of the amphibian clade. Again, this is before dinosaurs roamed the earth. There's some enormous petrified wood up there. There's another pre-dinosaur creature. And again, some of these, again, during the Permian, these were sort of the kings of the pre-dinosaur era. You can see the direction that life was going, starting to get saber teeth and fangs and canines for hunting. Specialized sagittal crests up above. It's pretty neat. It's kind of a depiction in back. The first ancestors of mammals. This is Plateosaurus. Plateosaurus was an early Triassic herbivore. And this is Herrerasaurus. This is a very famous dinosaur, and again, you're lucky to see an articulation like this. Now, when you look at the hands, you notice the number of claws. This is an early theropod, early predator, very primitive, so primitive that some people say this is a proto-dinosaur and not an actual dinosaur, but it has all the hallmarks. Has the legs of a meat-eating dinosaur, has all the same structures. This is a very famous dinosaur. This is called Coelophysis. Now, Coelophysis, there was a massive flood that caught thousands of these. And if you look at the work of Georgia O'Keeffe, the famous artist, Western artist, her ranch is where this mass grave of Coelophysis was found. Very delicately built predator. But you can see this shape. This is called the classic dinosaur death pose. Many dinosaurs, when they died, the tendons would tighten and arch them up around backwards. All right, time to see what is usually, on any given day, my favorite dinosaur. This is the only place in Utah where you can see this. This is Dilophosaurus, famous double-crested king of the early Jurassic. This is an awesome, awesome dinosaur. Now, it's really interesting about it. In a lot of ways, it's very primitive. This is the dinosaur that was made famous in Jurassic Park, which was inaccurately depicted, and they gave it a frill, which we have no evidence that it had a frill. But look at the hand. If you look closely, you can see it's got 4 fingers. But those third and fourth fingers are fused right there. They're fused, so you really probably wouldn't have seen much. It would have looked like it had 3 fingers. But in nature, if you don't use it, you lose it. And this is an example right here of these fingers on the end. This is one of the coolest dinosaurs. Again, look how strange the shape of this jaw. And again, the double crest. So this is the jaw muscle. This is the eye socket. This is a cooling section. This is the nostril up here. So I love this. This is my favorite dinosaur most days of the week. They got bigger than this. Not too much bigger. This is about 75% grown. This guy's standing maybe 5-6 feet tall, but they got bigger. But he was kind of the king of his era, that early Jurassic. And again, here's a depiction what he might have looked like. Really cool. Now this is, it's a bit munched up, but this is Ceratosaurus. This is another one of my favorite dinosaurs. This is a mid-Jurassic species. And if you look at this image, you can see what the skull properly would have looked like. This had 3 horns. Now you can see this lower jaw here. The other side got pushed up in this particular fossil. But it had 3 horns, and if you look on top of that front horn, you see kind of those bony calcifications. Those are anchors for keratin, which means that these horns were likely much larger, and that Ceratosaurus probably had very large horns. The teeth are incredibly narrow, very blade-like and very breakable, very long for their size. So this is a contender at the time. We normally in the United States during this time period consider this to be kind of the second top predator. This over here was the top predator. This is Allosaurus, king of the Jurassic in North America, and a perfect dinosaur in every way. Blade-like teeth that sweep back. The teeth never run out. Kind of like crocodiles, they keep getting replenished in a conveyor belt. So if you break a tooth, it doesn't matter. Look at these claws. Now, at the Hutchings Museum, we have fossilized skin impressions, and these accurately depict it. You see these little bumps? These little bumps are called osteoderms, and they are made out of bone, but grown by the skin. But the skin impression is just like you'd expect for a reptile. But again, at the Hutchings Museum, we have some beautiful fossilized skin from this amazing creature. So this is Utah's state fossil. Every state gets a state fossil, and ours is Allosaurus, which again, one of the coolest dinosaurs on the planet. Sometimes we try in museums to figure out what is a good way to make something impactful. So take a look here. We got a T-Rex skull, and it's up high, it's the proper height, but then the skeleton has been roughed in along with the body outline to show you the actual size. This is a really good way to do it. Bones are dinky. Bones don't always show it, so having that dark outline showing the rest of the body, this is a really good idea of how to show a dinosaur. We also have a sauropod neck. I don't see what species. It might be a podosaurus, but again, that's a great way to display things. So same thing here. This is Albertosaurus, which is a tyrannosaur from Canada. And again, great way to display this. You can see what the skull looks like, and then have it fleshed out on the other side. Again, I really appreciate accurately depicted dinosaurs and the amount of work and craftsmanship that goes in to flesh these things out in a lifelike way. Just absolutely beautiful. Over here, we have some examples of fossilized eggs and baby titanosaurs. Now, you ever hate something so much you learn to like it? This was always my most hated of all dinosaurs, Carnotaurus. He's got arms so stumpy and a face so stumpy, he makes T-Rex arms look big. But I hated on this guy so much that I ended up falling in love with him. I actually love Carnotaurus. It has horns like a bull. And this museum, they don't have it here anymore, but made the absolute perfect life rendition of this animal full-sized. And you compare this to a T-Rex. Again, beautiful rendition. And this is an older one, sculpted in 1979. This is based off of a famous Charles Knight painting. Got some other interesting specimens over here. Got a Gallimimus skull. This thing is the thing that you have in Jurassic Park and the big old flock of them running along. Strethiomymus, same. This is a cousin of Gallimimus. This is basically an ostrich. Got a hadrosaur here, a duck-billed dinosaur. And this is a Cicadasaurus. This little guy is actually a relative of Triceratops, but he walked on 2 legs. This is Edmontosaurus, which is a type of duckbill. And look at the tooth. This tooth, it looks like a woolly mammoth tooth. This tooth is a molar. Very few dinosaurs could chew. This is one of the earliest molars of any life form ever of Edmontosaurus here. Got some more life sculptures. Got some fossilized eggs of Protoceratops. And here's a little statue of Protoceratops. Again, some fun specimens and some really good life recreations here. And a little section of Tyrannosaurus Rex jaw. Now, part of the fun of this museum is it's got a lot of pop culture displays here showing some of the past things how people view dinosaurs. So you got a lot of this, King Kong versus the dinosaur. It's kind of crazy. Of course, Jurassic Park. That's that thing on its path. And there's even collections of dinosaur toys over the ages, which really is, Barbie dinosaur, paleontologist Barbie. That's awesome. But again, the human perception of dinosaurs has changed over time. This is what we used to think dinosaurs look like, that they drug their tail, they're big upright monsters. And again, in the pop culture, this is how we saw things. But we now know these are inaccurate. Oh, this is cool. Okay. The first dinosaurs found, Iguanodon and Megalodon. This is what they depicted them like. This is a Megalosaurus right here. This is one of the first dinosaurs ever discovered. And they just pieced it together like that. Turns out it looked more like a T-Rex. And Iguanodon, the first Iguanodon was just found a thumb spike and a tooth like this, that looked to be the same tooth shape as an iguana, like this, only huge. So again, they depicted them as these big, old, huge, lumbering lizards. And then later on, we found more bones, and they started to depict them like this, and now we know what they actually look like today. Got some fossil mosasaurs here. These are big, old, prehistoric underwater animals. This is a type of gar fish. There's another prehistoric fish fossil. And again, they have big, old, thick, bony scales. It was really cool. Oh, here we go. My old enemy. Yeah, look at these. These are the people at this museum. They made this depiction. This is what I was talking about earlier. This life creation. And this made me fall in love with this dinosaur that I used to hate. Carnotaurus. The bull-headed dinosaur. Here's the skull. Get a good look at that skull there. And this is fossilized skin from this species. I got a lot of examples of fossilized skin here. Petrified, turned to a rock. And this is an osteoderm. See that bumpy one there? It's like a scale. And that is the plate off of the back of a stegosaurus. You can peek back out here and see allosaurus chilling again. Now over here, these are the tail spikes from Stegosaurus, a very famous dinosaur. Now these spikes never had a name, but a Gary Larson cartoon made a joke about that these were named a Thagomizer after they killed the late Thag Simmons. It was kind of a joke. But now paleontologists call these Thagomizers after a Gary Larson cartoon. Stegosaurus had a very small skull. Didn't have a very big brain. But they had these big old huge plates. Now, some people think these plates, see all those stripes going up and down? They think those were filled with blood vessels and they could change the colors of that plate by flushing blood through it. Oh, here we go. We got dromaeosaurs climbing trees. So one of the things this museum is well known for, we're going to see these live creations in a second. These dinosaurs used to be depicted as scaly, and we now know that most dinosaurs had feathers, even ones that couldn't fly. And we're going to take a look at some of these in a few minutes. But again, some of these sculptures are beautiful. We're going to talk about wrists in a few minutes. It's really important, but again, These are so well articulated. Usually you don't see that. Here's a little display on birds throughout ancient history. Got a hornbill preserved and an ancient Egyptian mummified ibis. There's a shoebill stork and a little display about dodos. This is a member of the Ankylosaur family. It's a big, heavy armored dinosaur with a clubbed tail. And then here are parts of the rostrum of a triceratops. This is Hypsilophodont. If you read the Jurassic Park books, these are prominently displayed in them. And here is arguably the king of the Triceratops family. This is Styracosaurus. I really think it's got the coolest display of horns you'll ever see on a ceratopian. Look at that. Look at that. Just amazing. I love how lifelike they are. I wish I had one of these in my living room. It would be cool. Okay, now this right here is a claw and a life recreation of Spinosaurus. Take a look on the other side there. Now, Spinosaurus was a giant dinosaur made famous by Jurassic Park. And this is Suchomimus now. This is a cousin, a slightly smaller cousin of Spinosaurus. Now, the Jurassic Park series made Spinosaurus famous, but it made him a lot beefier than they really were. The members of this family were actually aquatic and much narrower and more nimble. They had a mouth for catching fish. Hope you're having fun seeing some of this stuff, and it's just really exciting. It's such a beautiful museum. But we're now going to look at some of things that dive in to the evolution of flight and the evolution of birds. Birds didn't stay in one place. They branched off into a lot of different lineages that are not still around today. Ones that had like wings on their legs and stuff. This museum is very famous for a lot of the research that has gone in on that way. So we're going to look at some of these displays that just kind of go into the evolution of flight and of birds. So this display, you've got a lot of birds that fly in unique ways. There's a hornbill, there's a baby ostrich, and a pigeon skeleton. And again, this talks about what indicates flight and versus flightlessness. You can kind of see some of these displays and some of these early fossils that had some of these things. Now this is a very interesting species that had both wings and legs. You can see that. And then the wings on the legs, and these are perfectly preserved in fossil specimens. It's an odd time where you had both wings and legs. This talks about the evolutionary chain that went to, members of the raptor family and how the fingers switched and eventually turned to what we have today with birds. But the bones are still there. And most birds still have, they still have claws on the ends of their wingtips. It's just covered by feathers. There's a little display of a baby feathered dinosaur in a nest. Now this is not a bird, this is a pterosaur that has been well preserved. And you can see how it has kind of that colored crest. We actually have the original fossil of this guy and can actually see that striping on it. Here's another flighted dinosaur. Here's a picture of that one. We're seeing the crest in place there. Some more non-flighted feathered dinosaurs over here. And again, these are pterosaurs, which are not birds, but could fly. That's Archaeopteryx, very famous. The one that first let us know that there were flying, feathered dinosaurs. And then the pterosaurs that were more like bats, where they had a webbed wing. This is a cool display. This is a cassowary, which is a modern day flightless bird. This is a kiwi, Again, another modern day flightless bird. This is Guanlong from China, which is an early tyrannosaur. And this is a kakapo. It's a taxidermy specimen. This is the heaviest parrot alive today, and they're flightless, and they're nocturnal. They live in New Zealand. These are photos of Confuciornis, very feathered dinosaur, and look at the tail. These two long deck feathers coming down, but very clearly primary flight feathers very early on. But this is a dinosaur that, didn't have a beak. It just had a toothless bill. There's been many other feathered dinosaurs that did have teeth. You can see this as like a regular meat-eating dinosaur, but there's feathers all over. So there's a lot in this museum paying homage to the media of the past. So for example, this setup is showing how things were done and set up. I don't know if you can see it through the camera. This is how things were shot for filming the dinosaur scene in King Kong. And you have layers where again you have these painted mats that you see through, and then in the back you do the stop-go animation with the dinosaur. But when you see through all of it together, when you look through and you film shot for shot, then it works. It's pretty cool. There's some of these are originals. This is the King Kong brontosaurus. This is what's left of it. It was used to animate. It's a pretty exciting bit of media history. Talking about when we first started understanding how dinosaurs walked. It's really cool. Over here, these are plants from the dinosaur times that are still alive today. So you could call them living fossils. This is a cycad. This is very tough, very hard to eat, and you had to have robust teeth to break it down. But plant-eating dinosaurs would swallow rocks to help break these down in their stomachs. But this is still around today. And this is another species. I can't remember the name of this one, but this is something we have in temperate rainforests today. And of course, the early figs, which are living fossils. Got footprints here. There's some more footprints up there. Some of these are huge. And there's a prepped hadrosaur showing the excavation process here. It's pretty neat. There's some fossil leaves that, again, you're looking at some of these same species that are on display here. They've been around for millions of years. Devonian Carboniferous fossils. This we call the butthead dinosaur. This is Pachycephalosaurus. It's a herbivore. It's got that big old crown, and many people believe that it was used just like bighorn sheep for butting heads, for territorial disputes, or maybe fighting for a mate. Might have not been. Could have been something totally different, but I'm in on this one. I think that's the reason why. Again, let's look at this hadrosaur, duck-billed dinosaur, half excavated out, so you can see the process. And again, this is an early chewing dinosaur that had molars, so it could actually chew its food, which isn't something most dinosaurs could do, whether you were a meat eater or a plant eater. So this is kind of cool. This is showing the different types of feathers. And we find, again, all of these on dinosaurs. But again, a stage 1 feather is just kind of a bristle made out of keratin. And these are kind of like down, but we find all of these on dinosaurs. But now it's time to see one of the gemstones. Are you ready for this? This is Therizinosaurus. Dun, dun, dun. This is a wild, wild creature. And I'm gonna be talking about this bad boy because look at these claws. Look at these enormous claws. This is so well depicted. Okay, before I talk about this guy, I want you to notice some features. Short, stumpy tail. You can kind of see a very wide, robust pelvis. Long arms, huge, oversized, ridiculous claws, and protomolars for chewing. So what is the story of this crazy creature? Well, I'm gonna tell you. Okay, Therizinosaurus. What is this thing? This is a meat eater that turned into a plant eater. This is actually distantly related to the raptor family, like Deinonychus and Velociraptor, but it became a type of plant eater. Now, the earliest form we have, this is normally thought of as being like China and Asia, but the earliest form we have actually came from Utah. It's called Northornicus. And I believe the specimen, if you want to see it, you can go up to the University of Utah Museum. You can see it there. It's not very big, but it's the first version of this. And what happened is, eventually it turned into this family. This is a giant ground sloth of the dinosaur world. So this is a certain way of life. If you become a browser, first of all, you gotta have big claws to reach up and pull down branches, big old oversized claws. You look at giant ground sloths, same thing. The biggest claws out of the dinosaur world of any dinosaur are these guys, Therizinosaurs. The biggest claws out of any mammal, millions of years later, giant ground sloths, absolutely enormous, okay? Second of all, if you're going to have a plant, a dinosaur, where instead of being a grazer, you're gonna be a browser, you gotta have a bigger gut to digest that. So the pelvis splays out. The pelvis of this dinosaur is the same as the pelvis of a giant ground sloth, super spread out. Now also, giant ground sloths would sit down on their backside and would lift up higher and pull stuff down. We think he did the same thing. We think this guy had the ability to kind of sit back and lean up and grab stuff down. So basically, if a form works, nature is just gonna move in to fill that form. Dinosaurs did it millions of years ago, and thousands of years ago, the giant ground sloths did the same thing. Now I love the feathering on this. It's really well feathered, and we're gonna look at some other feathered dinosaurs in a minute that just make my heart absolutely sing. I'm looking at them behind right now, and I'm just so pumped to show you these because this museum does it right. You don't see this anywhere else. So again, Therizinosaurus, biggest claws of any dinosaur ever, enormous plant eater that was again eating like a giant ground sloth. Really pretty cool. Okay, jumping in here. Got some Deinonychus. These look like velociraptors, but if you want to see a velociraptor, come to the Hutchings Museum. See our skeletons are a lot smaller. They're in the same family. So this shows what we used to think they looked like and what we now know they look like. But you ready for one of the most important things about this? Take a look. You see this wrist? Look how this wrist is set. This is accurate. Everybody depicts them wrong, where they always have them like down in front, but they actually were sideways. This is the only museum I've seen with 100% flawlessly articulated wrists. You won't see this anywhere else. This is incredible. Look at this guy. Look how well this was put together. Again, this is what they look like under the feathers. Look at these killing claws. These are the claws they're famous for. They ran on those two, and then they left this one up above so they could slash and kill. Incredible. But we later on found out they had feathers. And I think these are really well done. You have a lot of types of Asian pheasants and chickens. Those tail feathers back there are turkey tail feathers. But beautifully done. They've got a little bit of a crest. Oh, I love these. These are so accurately rendered. The teeth, swept back blades, the feathers. And again, we have found fossilized wings and fossilized feathers on these species now, and we know that this is what they look like. We didn't know that growing up. We thought they were all scaly monsters. Look at some more of these guys over here. God, I'd kill to have one of these in my front room. Just beautiful. And again, we have fossilized dinosaur feathers that preserved pigment cells. Each cell is shaped different, so we can actually know the color of some of the dinosaurs. And we know there are dinosaurs with rainbow colors and bright patterns and bright stripes. We know this now. We never used to know this before. So hats off to the Dinosaur Museum in Blanding for getting dinosaurs 100% up to date, accurate. I love these so much. Well done, well done. Look at that face. You can just see the intelligence. It's just like a bird of prey. But again, the attention to detail on these wrists is what keeps me coming back here, doing it right. So take a look at this guy. You'll notice he has his arms splayed out. Let me go up a little here. See how they're splayed out? But notice his arms are also out. So they couldn't slash sideways unless they turned up like this. Then they could slash like this. But if their arms were down, then their wrists would lock in. So this is still accurate, but they would have to, again, flare out their humerus bones in order to be able to jump up and leap like this. It's pretty cool. Again, look at these killing claws down here on the feet. Really cool. Again, I'm an artist, I'm a paleo artist, and I appreciate people who put in work to do something right instead of just making monsters. We don't need monsters. This is what we need. Accurate depictions that teach and help us understand. I love these. But look at that Therizinosaurus back there. Can you imagine that? Big old huge plant eater with enormous feathers like that. Just imagine. Look at these claws. Biggest claws of any animal on the planet ever, and it was from a plant eater. This is an accurate depiction of Deinosuchus. Deinosuchus was basically the world's biggest alligator. Now, at our museum, at the Hutchings Museum, you can come see, we have Sarcosuchus, which is the similar sized biggest crocodile that ever lived. But again, this is like a 7-foot long head. It's wild to think of that, just the head being that big. Having this guy come out and chomp, there's no dinosaur he would not have been willing to go after. There's Therizinosaurus again. God, I love that guy. Such a weirdo. The giant sloth of the dinosaur world. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed seeing this museum. Again, this is the Dinosaur Museum in Blanding, Utah. It's such a rich, veritable treasure trove, as we like to say, of some of the most iconic dinosaur species on Earth, but also an absolute treasure of pop culture, of just how the perception of dinosaurs have changed over time and how they've been represented in media. That in and of itself, it could be a museum just based off of that, but it's also got these incredible specimens of all different kinds. I love this museum. I cannot recommend it enough, and I appreciate you coming along with me and checking this out. So, as always, remember, life is an opportunity. It's an amazing gift. So never stop learning and never stop exploring. We'll see you next time.